Respice post te, hominem esse memento mori. It's a laugh a minute in the Memento Mori Booktube tag. This tag was created by David at Polyglot Reading, and I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat, both accounts in the description below. There are 8 prompts to this tag and an exhortation at the end to tag someone else, like passing the VHS cassette round in Ringu. Question 1. How many books will you be able to read before you die, considering age and statistical life expectancy? Cheery. I read around 150 novels a year currently, and will probably, hopefully, maintain that until such point that I retire. At that point, I hope to bump that number up by, let's say, 50 a year, to take it to 200 a year. And if I make it to 75, let's round it down to 4,000 books. Of course, that's just statistics. I may have a very short TBR indeed. Question 2. How does this number affect your choice of books? Well, as I've just alluded to, you can plan all you like and it could go very, very wrong. I don't think I can have it affect the choices that I'm going to make. I think if you were to come into the knowledge that you had X amount of time left, I would probably rearrange my TBR at that point, maybe to reread a couple of favourites, maybe to read something I've had always meant to get around to. But I don't want to spend the rest of my days thinking in those terms. I just want to read what I want to read at the moment and enjoy what I am reading. Question 3. What will happen to my book collection once I have died? I will probably reduce my book collection nearing the end, and again, if I have some kind of timescale to work to, I would expedite that process. If my book collection were to become available today, to speak euphemistically, I should imagine they'll just go onto eBay. Don't think anybody else wants them in my family. Question 4. Is there a book that helps you to cope with the disturbing fact of a limited lifespan? One I read earlier this year, actually, I think puts a nice little perspective on it, which is, I don't know the pronunciation, micromegas or micromegas, or mixture of those two syllables, from Voltaire, where the character, the huge giant that visits Earth with his smaller yet still giant to us friend from Jupiter, bemoans the shortness of his lifespan, that he won't have all the time to get done what he wants to get done, yet his lifespan is measured into what us is absolute aeons. I think however much time you've got, it's always going to be limited, so maximize the time you do have by not thinking too much about that. And maybe look on the bright side. Think of every story you've read about a character that achieves immortality. It rarely ends well. Question number 5. Which book on the topic do you consider the most witty or entertaining? Terry Pratchett's depiction of death throughout the Discworld series, and indeed in a couple of titles where he is the main character, I think is a brilliant way of thinking about death. Just that right mix of complete neutrality and incomprehension at how humans conduct their lives. And I suppose whilst you're thinking about Pratchett, look to the way Pratchett conducted himself when he was given a diagnosis of a terminal illness. Another pair of novels where I think there is a good attitude and healthy wanting to avoid death is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, and the sequel that came out many years following that, Closing Time. Obviously death in the midst of the futility of war, and then the veterans of the conflict so many years later as they are nearing the end of their own lives. There's obviously seriousness in the subject there, but I think that Heller handles it in a humorous and touching way. Question 5. Do you have a specific non-fiction book on the topic of death that you'd like to recommend? I'm not sure I would recommend this, but there is Plutarch, in consolation to his wife, which is the first part of this slim Penguin volume. Plutarch has just learned via messenger of the death of his adult daughter, and responds to that message to his wife. They are apart geographically at this point. I think if Plutarch had tried to console me in the depths of grief in the way that he consoles his wife, he would absolutely deserve a kick up the arse moriendi. But in the text there is one short passage I think that probably does encapsulate a bit of good advice. He says, however, my dear, I fail to see any reason why, when this and similar behaviour pleased us during her life, it should upset and trouble us when we recall it now. I worry about the alternative, however, that we might consign the memory of her oblivion along with our distress. And I think if you took nothing away from that book, that's probably a very healthy attitude to have. Question 7. Humour can be helpful to confront death. Do you have a favourite quote on this topic? A favourite witty quote on this topic? If I'm after witty quotes, I will first look to Groucho Marx, and he does have a couple. I intend to live forever, or die trying. And die, dear doctor? That's the last thing I'll do. Question 8. Does this tag make you feel uneasy, or are you quite relaxed about this topic? I think, as I sort of alluded to earlier, there's nothing you can do about it, and Memento Mori is that reminder that it is inevitable and that it comes to everyone. And I'm not a live your life every moment type of person, but I think you can take it too far to the other extreme. So no, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it on a personal or metaphysical basis, on a practical and financial footing. 9. Tag some people. Bartel's Bookshelf, you're up again, as well as Bookless Pete and Sam Meads Reads. I'll be back again shortly to talk about what I've read in February, what I'm looking forward to reading during March, and also picking a new random book from the tote bag of Mild Peril. And having just finished this last book, I'll be talking briefly about Umberto Eco as well, a book which is not entirely unrelated to this tag. But until then,